Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jack. Back again to talk about the Alabaster Lady. Now, I know I already addressed this when talking about all of the new legendaries that are going to be coming out just a video or two ago, but I really wanted to kind of address this again because I had a number of people who kind of didn't believe me, and which was understandable, which was fine because I didn't actually have the content, the video of me doing it, the logs of me doing it, the practical application of actually taking this legendary, but I have it now. And I wanted to kind of go over it in a little bit more detail, as well as some things that I kind of learned out of it, and you know, the things that kind of fulfilled some of my initial assumptions. So initially, actually the very first time I saw this, to rewind a little bit, is I thought like, oh my gosh, this thing would be fantastic, this thing could be amazing, and part of it was based off the assumption that it was going to proc off of when your Naru proc, when your Turei procced, which was the first iteration of it. And to me, I'm saying, well, it's 15 seconds. You know, you're proccing, you know, about a minute-ish worth, or 45 seconds worth of Turei over the course of one encounter. So, hey, this is basically like taking Apotheosis, but it's just at random times, you know? Something like that. And for me, that was like, oh, it's really cool. But then the more I thought about it, and when I made the previous video, you know, the more I saw, well, what happens when you're proccing your Turei, what's going on over the course of the fight. So like I looked through old videos of my streams or anything like that. If you want to check out the live stream, link is below. And one of the things I kept seeing is like, wow, I'm hitting, you know, my holy words, and then, you know, I don't really have much follow-up to it more often than not. Sometimes I did, sometimes I actually had to keep on spamming and stuff like that for overwhelming damage. And I was like, wow, that doesn't really look that good. And, of course, just recently they changed it so it's on Prayer of Mending cast. You have, I believe it's a 15% chance to proc Apotheosis for about 8 seconds or so. And I was like, okay, well, it doesn't make it the best, but we are casting a lot of Prayer of Mending, so it might actually get a little bit better uptime overall because, you know, it wasn't really that high of uptime when we saw it with proc with Turei because it was only 5 seconds or something like that. You know, it's kind of ridiculous. So, and then I went into, I believe it's Mythic Gorok or Goroth, the first boss in Tomb of Sargeras, the Mythic PTR testing that we did on Thursday. And whole time I spent practicing with the Alabaster Lady, and I just kind of wanted to see how it would actually be performing. And of course, you know, for us with Mythic Gorok testing or any of the PTR testing, the expectation isn't really to kill the boss, just to get some face time on it, see what it's all about. And, you know, really see how I'm supposed to be healing the encounter. I went with some pugs. My guild has not actually done any organized PTR testing yet. I'm really looking forward to the time that we can do some. But, so I went around and pugged, so we had a bunch of wipes and stuff like that. The logs, if you want to check them out, because I didn't have my details installed yet, are linked in the description below. But getting into the Alabaster Lady. The Alabaster Lady, if you can watch through the videos and the clips of right here, what you'll see is the gold bar that's going to appear right above my holy words. There's going to be the blue holy word, which is Serenity, and then, of course, there's the gold, which will be Sanctify. Those are the big bars in the middle of my weak aura, and then right above that, a gold bar will pop up when Apotheosis procs. And the biggest thing I want you to focus on is just checking out that when those gold bars proc, how significant they actually are, and is there any runoff, is there any time that's wasted? Because in my experiences, I kept finding more and more time that it was wasted, more often than not. I had a couple situations, maybe you'll be able to pick them out over here, where it was like amazing, like, oh my gosh, you know, overwhelmingly large ray damage, popping off holy words back to back to back. It was really good. I think it was one where I was chaining, you know, I hit my Sanctify, prayer of healed, and then I got another Sanctify, and then I hit a Serenity, and I was just bouncing off each other. It was great for, you know, 1 or 2 of the, I believe, 15 or a dozen pulls that I actually got through where I got really good value. And that's one of the situations when I'm analyzing trinkets that at first I didn't recognize, but it really grew on me the more that I played with it, is that whenever you're in a situation where you're analyzing any kind of legendary or even a trinket even, the more that you say, maybe, sometimes, in this situation, yada yada yada, the more that it actually just isn't a good trinket or a good legendary, a good item in general. You know, the more that you have to focus and drill down on top of a situation for when this might be good is usually the situation where it's just horrible in general. You know, you find the general case, the usual case, where it's just really not that good. And I think the Alabaster Lady kind of epitomizes that. And it also kind of puts a lot of focus on, I believe, Blizzard's design for Holy Priest Legendaries, which is something that we really haven't talked about that much, or I haven't really talked about that much. But the fact is, if you look at all the Holy Priest Legendaries, the ones that interact in terms of just passives, where they're just passively increasing your healing, passively reducing your cast time, you know, passively augmenting an ability like the Legendary Cloak or something like that, are really, really powerful. Or they're on the higher level of Legendary. So you have the Legendary Cloak, which is just passive that augments your Legendary Cloak. You know, you have Villains, which of course, on use, just does insane amounts of healing, of course. You have the Legendary Legs, which is, of course, you know, extra duration, and it synergizes with, you know, an existing talent, right? You have Prydaz, of course, which is just gets better and better the more HP that you have, because it's just going to be a big absorb, and we really needed a defensive that's not horrible, right? And moves even to top out the top 5, you know, passive decrease in cast time to frequently casted abilities, and you even add Flash Shield to the mix, it gets even better, right? So then you go into the situation of comparing those 5 to the Alabaster Lady, where sometimes it'll have value, sometimes it will do this, and sometimes it will do that. But in the reality, it just didn't do enough for me. And it also stands out that, yes, it's an RNG, and it's not alone in RNG legendaries, of course. But the big thing that stands out to me when I look at this legendary is that it's a Holy Word specific or Holy Word focused legendary. And that's one area that Blizzard's really failed in terms of their legendary design for Holy Priest, is that the legendaries, the Belt and now the Alabaster Lady, that focus on Holy Words have failed, and they've flopped in a big way. You can kind of understand when a legendary like Ramal's, which is very focused into Flash Shield, is made, and you can say, you know, why would they make that? Well, it made sense at the time, because at the time that it came out in 7.15, we were totally focused into casting Flash Shield, and it was on track to be a great legendary, or at least a very solid one, until Prayer of Healing got buffed, Blessing of Turai no longer procced off of Trail of Light, all this stuff that was going on at the exact same time, which can instantly change how you analyze a legendary and instantly change how things work. So if the meta starts shifting away from how we're using one ability, then, you know, the legendary focused on that ability becomes way worse, right? So that was something that was, you know, it was understandable. You could understand, okay, where they were coming from, and, you know, even though the legendary Ramal's today is not great, you know, it's pretty mediocre, pretty average legendary, you know, you can at least understand why they made it where it came from, right? When you look at something like the Alabaster Lady, however, I think there's many people in the community who would be interested in using Apotheosis more often, absolutely. But we had a lot of issues with how long of the duration it was for such a large cooldown. So their thought process, I'm assuming, their thought process is saying, well, let's just have it at a very, very short duration, but not too short that you can't get any value out of it. So that's where the 8 seconds comes from, which is kind of a sweet spot. But at the same time, the RNG, the lack of control, really kills this thing. And it really, really makes it so that it's very, very difficult to receive the actual value of it, because the damage patterns overall can just kind of switch around and kind of change up depending on the encounters. And it's not always going to mesh with every single time you cast Prayer of Mending, you could always get value out of Apotheosis. That's not the case. And, you know, it's something where if they went a little more complex with the Alabaster Lady, and they went a little bit more in depth with how this thing could work, it probably could have worked. I'm calling a legendary before we even have it on live servers a dead trinket, a dead on arrival legendary, of course. But I think it really could have worked if there was control factor given to us. If there was control given to this legendary that was able to say that we'd have some control over Apotheosis, because many people want to use Apotheosis, and many people are, you know, like myself, have talked about different ideas like, okay, let's just reduce the cooldown and reduce the duration and have something like that, because then we'll actually be able to stand still for 10 seconds and actually cast for 10 seconds. Whereas a full 30 seconds, it's really hard to find fights where it's really easy to stand still for a full 30 seconds and just cast Holy Words on cooldown that are always going to have value, always going to be powerful, stuff like that. It's a lot harder. So it might even have been something where if the Alabaster Lady gave you charges off of palm casts, where the Alabaster Lady was an on-use helm, which would be really weird, trust me. This is spitball here. If you guys have better ideas, definitely let me know in the comments below. But if you had something where it was, you know, after you cast 4 Prayer of Mendings, you get, you know, you activate the Alabaster Lady, or you get to choose to use the Alabaster Lady, and then you proc, you know, Apotheosis for 8 seconds or 10 seconds or something like that, you know. Would that be the most OP thing ever? Not really. Not really. But it would certainly make it a lot better than it is in its current state. You know, in its current position where it's not you're not really having control over everything. So Apotheosis can be an extremely powerful ability, can be an extremely powerful buff that's given to you, but the lack of control that you have over it really makes it a hell of a lot more difficult to actually get the value, you know? Some people use examples where there's just high damage everywhere, like, I don't know, a scorpion on steroids where you never had to move or something like that. But again, that kind of drills down further into the more situations you try to craft for this thing, it's just a different way of you saying that this is not good, basically, is that it's just not good. But I do want Holy Priest Legendaries to be better in the future, and I do want them to be engaging, to be active abilities, to be, you know, things that are directly affecting our Holy Words. I'd love to have a Holy Word Legendary that was very powerful. And maybe we'll see another round of Legendaries before the expansion is over. So let me know what you guys think. What would your idea for a Holy Priest Holy Word Legendary, what would it be? You know, it could work with Apotheosis, it could be an iteration on Alabaster Lady or something like that. I don't know, you know? Let me know what you guys think. I definitely want to see some better Holy Priest Legendaries in the future, that's for sure. Because we struck out now with Ramal's, we struck out with this old High Priest ring, and now we're striking out with the Alabaster Lady. So let me know what you guys think. Hope you all enjoy it. I'll catch y'all next time.